All right, today we're going to be going over the U.S. political system. This includes the role of the citizens, the three branches of government, and the three linkage institutions. Linkage institutions. These are channels that allow people to interact with the government. Examples of this is how the people communicate with their preferences, ideologies, and needs to the government. Examples of institutions are media, political parties, and interest groups. All right, this is the media. It provides information to government as to perspectives, needs, and opinions of each group. Accountability of government held to inform people of wrong and right doings. Highly influential to the people. Examples of this, outlets spin their own narrative of each story to gain viewership for ad revenue. This criticizes the other side's viewpoints, which is biased, it's misleading, and just misleading information for the viewership. Controls how information is exchanged between the people and government. All right, next is political parties. Platforms used to spread specific perspectives of each group's factors of importance. This is represented by what the people believe in and how the views are practiced. Through voter mobilization and education, this influences the people by providing solutions to issues. All right, and then another one on this is candidate recruitment, changing or preserving the party's agenda to represent their ideologies, and this is also done by campaign management as well. All right, next we have interest groups. Lobbyists try to influence bill votes. Direct lobbying, which is an example of this. Lobbyists exchange with government officials to advocate for certain policies, how equitable the policies are for the system. Contributable groups of interest that lobby the government in influencing the media. Examples of this, people who've organized advocate groups for significance of public policy, social causes, or corporations. Contributions go towards voter education, legal funds to advocate for cases of interest, and advertising. Examples of interest groups are NAACP, NRA, AFL-CIO, and these are, they advocate for labor-friendly policies, minority rights, and trade policies.
All right, three branches of government. Let's get to it. Executive and judicial branches. Elections, the executive branch. In the executive branch, the only elected official is the president and their running mate, the vice president. The presidential election happens once per 4 years and is elected from one of the parties. Judicial, only state court judges are elected. Federal judges are appointed by the Senate or the president, depending on if they're an Article 1 or Article 2 judge. Responsibilities. The responsibilities of the executive branch can be summed up with enforcing laws made by Congress. In the executive branch, there are the president, vice president, and the cabinet. The cabinet is made up of the appointed head of each department. For example, the Department of Treasury or the Department of Justice. The president can pass or veto bills passed by Congress. Judicial. The judicial branch is made up of the United States Supreme Court and the 12 federal district circuit courts. The Supreme Court is an appellate court that takes cases that have a national precedent and or deal with constitutional laws. The circuit courts are also an appellate court, but a step down from the Supreme Court. If you are displeased by a verdict from a state judge, then you can appeal to the circuit court, and then if you are still displeased, you can take it to the Supreme Court. Checks and balances. Executive. The president can veto a bill by Congress, and it can still be overruled by 2/3 vote from both houses of Congress. The president appoints the Supreme Court justices. The vice president breaks ties in Congress. And the judicial checks and balances are the Supreme Court can overrule any law if it is deemed unconstitutional, and the writ of habeas corpus, which is used to detain a prisoner, which can be used in an impeachment trial on the president.
Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about the legislative branch. So for Congress, one part of Congress is the House of Representatives, so I'm going to go into the elections. So the House of Representatives is based on population, so each state has a different amount of representatives. So there are 435 members and they serve 2-year terms. The entire House of Representatives is up for election every 2 years. The House of Representatives follows the standard for presidential and Senate elections. Party primaries are held first to determine which individual political party nominee as their candidate for the seat. Once parties choose their candidates, a general election is held in November of even calendar years. Whoever receives the popular vote within the specific House district is then declared the winner of the House seat. Since there are no specified term limits for any member of the House of Representatives, it is possible for a representative to hold their seat for the remainder of his or her life. So also the other part of Congress is the Senate. So I'll go over the Senate elections. The Senate equal representation, so they have 2 per state, meaning that for the 50 states there are 100 members. They serve 6-year terms, which are staggered every 2 years. The senators are elected by popular vote in each state. The candidate who receives the most votes wins the election through, in some states, when no candidate receives at least 50% of the vote, the candidate with the 2 highest vote counts compete in a runoff to determine the winner. Direct elections of senators began in 1913. Prior to that, senators were chosen by the legislature of each state, so it was not up to the people, as initially prescribed by the U.S. Constitution, and then it was later changed. The process was changed to direct election due to various problems and controversies arising from the legislative appointment. The 17th Amendment mandated popular election. It also gave the governor of each state authority to appoint a replacement should a Senate seat become vacant. The replacement senator serves the remainder of the vacant senator 6-year term, and at the end of the term, the replacement senator is eligible to run for a full 6-year term. So the responsibilities of the legislative branch. So the main responsibilities is legislation and representation of the American citizens. So they write and suggest bills to become law, which get passed in the Senate and must get passed in the House as well, and the other way around. So if a bill gets passed in the House, it must also get passed in the Senate. Most bills do not get passed into law. They die at standing committees most of the time because of how hard it is to get passed in both. Members of Congress are elected on behalf of the American people. They are supposed to propose laws that represent the people that they are in office for. Their responsibility is also to vote on bills on how the people they are representing would vote as well. And then a big thing that Congress is founded on is the elastic clause, which means that they are able to make any law if necessary and proper. So checks and balances for the legislative branch. So checks and balances is the process so that no one branch gets too much power, that every branch has something they can do to override the other branch to make the legal process fair. The writers of the Constitution did this so that tyranny was not possible in their form of government, because that's what they wanted to get away from in Great Britain to begin with. So specific examples of checks and balances is that Congress can override a veto from the president of a bill trying to get signed into law. If Congress feels necessary, they can also impeach the president, which has only happened 2 times. They can also approve appointments in treaties called by the president, and they are the only branch of government that can declare war, which some people think that it's the president, but it's actually not. And they also propose constitutional changes.
I'm going to be going over civil rights. Voting. As a citizens of the United States, it is important to show civil responsibilities, such as voting. Voting is extremely important, for it gives citizens a voice in who's running the country and how the country is ran. When people do not vote, they are giving up their civil responsibilities. They are also handing their power over, possibly to their opposing views. Voting is the most common way for all citizens to participate in our democracy government. Citizens vote for different leaders to represent them and their ideas, such as judges, mayor, governor, representatives, senates, and the president. Electing these educated and experienced citizens as officials, politicians will affect the community, states, and the entire country. Most citizens base their votes on their income, taxes, education, age, and race, leading them to join political parties that have shared ideology and interests. Voting for presidents is every 4 years, for representatives it is 2 years, and for senators it is every 6 years. Popular sovereignty. A simple definition of popular sovereignty is the government based on the citizens' consent. Power to the people. For example, people express themselves through voting, jury duty, etc. Popular sovereignty promptly states that the power is in the people. The principle of popular sovereignty is the authority of the states, federal government, and are created to sustain through the consent of the people. This displays by citizens voting to represent popular politicians in the government. Popular sovereignty can be determined as the basic idea of democracy, ensuring that the government is ran by and for the citizens of the United States.
Okay, and I'll be going over the civil liberties. Civil liberties are the rights to freedom protected from the government. The Bill of Rights constitutional amendments were put into place to guarantee citizens' rights cannot be abridged by the government without the due process of law. All citizens have the right to the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, religion, and assembly. Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. The Fourth Amendment, freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. An example of that is if the police want to search your car and you tell them that you would not like to, and if they don't have a warrant, they can't illegally search and seizure within your car without your consent. And the Fifth Amendment, the rights of the accused. Sixth Amendment, the right to a speedy trial. Eighth Amendment, freedom from cruel and unusual punishment. Ninth Amendment, the right to all non-documented rights, which means like if it falls under the umbrella of holding up a citizen's like human rights and it's not a law, it still falls up under the thing, Ninth Amendment. The 10th Amendment is reserved powers, and 14th Amendment guarantees all citizens equal rights and freedom, and no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process. Essentially, all of civil liberties are to ensure a free society, and civil liberties also provide protection to the citizens of the country. I was trying to figure out how to.
No, that's good.